Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. Today, my guest is Tina Powell. She is a nationally published journalist, an award-winning communicator, and a best-selling author. She's also the founder and chief content curator of Glorious Is She, a social media platform that celebrates Canadian women who inspire, achieve, and empower. She has a Master of Communications and Management degree from the University of Southern California and a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the York University, an English degree from McMaster's University, and currently working towards her Master's of Art in Gender, Feminism, and Women's Studies at York University. She's also alumni mentor in York University's Advancing Women Leadership Program. So you're all about women, and it's so wonderful to have you as a member of the Universal Women's Network, and I'm excited for this podcast today. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you so much, Monica. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm just tired hearing what you just said.
Well, it's a long list, and I think it's really important to really shout it from the rooftops when you've achieved success.
Well, thank you for that.
And we're going to talk about that in the podcast here, as we always do. We talk about celebrating accomplishments and all that stuff. But what I'd like to start with is you had a really great long bio of all these accomplishments, but do you remember what you wanted to be when you were 12?
Great question. Well, I always loved the written word. As a child, I read just nonstop. I was an avid reader, and I would often fall asleep at night. I'd probably look very similar to I look right now, with glasses on, but with a book on my face. And my mom would come in and have to put the book away and so forth. But so I always wanted to be an author, but I never thought that I could be. And I don't know how early in life you learn that you don't want to be a starving artist, that the arts don't, necessarily result in financial, economic success. So I said, well, maybe I'll be a teacher, because then I could at least teach the literature and maybe write on the side. And then I realized that everything in life is a business. So I decided to go to business school first, but I never left that dream, and I kept circling back to it and ended up being an author and journalist for 25 years.
Okay, so I'm going to read out something and you can tell me about that. So, don't ask, don't get, how one woman sold over 600,000 children's books to men. So tell us about that.
Okay, that's hilarious. All right. Well, how that all came to be is that my life changed dramatically. I was writing advertising copy, again, putting together business and writing, and that paid very well. And I was doing some business journalism at the time. And then I had children, and my life changed as I knew it. And I started writing children's books. But I realized very early in that the starving artist thing was true, and that although you were getting, royalties and whatnot, and you were out doing author visits, that it was a slow process. And I kind of looked for a bit of a bright spot in business and tried to think of a new model for taking books to market. And how that happened was that when you're watching a movie, you can see like a Coca-Cola can on the counter in the background, or they're driving a Ford car, and you're going, I wonder if someone paid for that. And you're thinking, I think they probably did. So what I did was I took my children's books, such as, let's get one here, Samantha's Silly-ish Sandwiches. And I thought, okay, this is a great book. It's done well. Children and teachers and parents seem to like it. But I thought, well, what can I do with this? And so I got a bunch of teachers together, and we got Dempster's Bread to pay for a curriculum-based activity book. And Dempster's Bread also paid for me to go to 100 schools in the GTA and be able to give these books away to the children and to the library. And it was just putting together these two worlds of getting corporate funding for a great cause of getting books in the hands of as many children as possible, because that's all you really want as an author. So I did another book with Boar's Head down in the States, and the same thing. Samantha's a hardworking girl. And then Peter's Perfect Pet became Patrick's Perfect Puppy with M&Ms. And then this was another Boar's Head book that actually the corporate book came before the traditional book. And then my book, Hi, I'm the New Baby, was turned into Bright and Busy Baby with Procter & Gamble Pampers. So it was all about bringing together these two worlds, creativities, bringing together two things that don't belong. So I did this, and that's why I ended up selling 600,000 books, and 5,000 is a bestseller in Canada. So to achieve that, but doing it in a different way, which, you know, made me stand out, maybe in a good way, maybe in a not so good way. It was very tastefully done in a way that was just all about getting books in the hands of families. I was going to inner city schools in, in New York and in Tennessee and all over the US and LA. And it was just so amazing to go to these schools and say, everybody gets a free book. So that's
Very
how I
cool.
did that.
Well, we've had many conversations before, Tina, but I didn't ask that question. I didn't know that background story about that before. And what really piqued my interest was about the men. And of course, that for the Universal Women's Network, we are all about raising the profiles of women and leaders, whether they're entrepreneurs or in the corporate world at all levels. But welcoming men to the conversation as their allies is so important. And so,
and not being afraid to be a woman in that space, and to be the woman you are and to be who you are. I mean, that's one of the things I love about a lot of today's women's leaders, such as Jacinda Ardern and the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She brought her baby to the Parliament and was, bring a baby to work day. I love Sanna Marin of Finland, who said, I am a young woman. I want to dance with my friends. I'm sorry that somebody broke, and put that video out there, but I'm not going to apologize for being a young woman who wants to dance with her friends. And also Lisa LaFlamme, who stood up and said, no, I'm not going to read your script. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to post my own video of me saying goodbye to my fans and to my, to my people. So I thought I think that's very important, to be who you are as a woman. So when I wanted to write a book with the Toronto Blue Jays, I was trying to figure out a way to get through to them, because I had already written a children's book, had a few short stories published, but I thought that the Blue Jays would be a wonderful role model for children who are looking at their fans about being a good sport and about trying your hardest and the importance of practicing. So I first of all, I called the Blue Jays. I said, who do I talk to? And they said, there's the vice president of marketing would make that decision. So I called and I got his voicemail and I left a message and I said, would you, be interested in a children's book? This is why I think it's such a great idea. It's a great marketing idea, et cetera, et cetera. We can partner together. And so he never called me back. And a couple of weeks go by and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he's busy. I leave another message, still doesn't call me back. And so all right. So then I thought, well, this was back in the day of fax machines. So I send him a fax and I'm outlining, with all the details, my resume, my bio, others, copies of articles I had written, just to, legitimize myself. He probably gets tons of phone calls. Well, he never called me. So I thought, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do here? So I sent a courier package with samples of my previous books and newspaper articles and so on and so forth, and magazines. Still nothing. So I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to be me in this space. And me is somebody who's a bit silly and a bit creative. So I sent him a chocolate telephone, like a phone that's chocolate you can eat, with my phone number on it. And he phoned me. And he said, hi, it's Peter Cosentino, and we're still, LinkedIn friends to this day. And he said, I said, oh my God, you called me. And he said, yeah, he goes, because anyone who wants to do business with the Toronto Blue Jays that badly deserves a meeting. And that was over 25 years ago. And I like to pride myself as being the longest standing Blue Jay in history, because I still just had a contract signed. I'm still within my contract with them. So
I love it. We're talking about ambition. We're talking about grit. We're talking about confidence, integrity, and never giving up. Like those are super, super important things that, we just sometimes sell ourselves too short and we give up too soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Persistence is absolutely critical, and leaving no rock unturned. or stone unturned, I think is the expression. When I first started out, I said made myself that promise. I actually had a note on my desk, leave no stone unturned. And I actually had gone to a small tailor shop with my husband, and he was getting a suit done, and we were chatting. And the guy who came out was actually someone I went to high school with, who was serving my husband. I said, "Oh my God, how are you?" And, catching up. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I went, "Oh, I'm trying to get a children's book published." And he goes, "Well, actually, one of my customers is just starting a publishing house. And, I don't know if he's going to do children's books, but, why don't you take his card and see, never know, have a conversation." So that card sat on my desk for a couple of weeks, and I kept looking at it. I'm going, "This is embarrassing. I'm going to call this person." He's going, "Who are you?" And I just thought, no stone unturned. I called him. He was my first publisher.
Wow. Amazing.
So you just don't know, just follow through. Even if you think it's going to be embarrassing, even if you think that there's a lost cause, you just never know.
So I often talk to women, Tina, and we talk about their career paths. And for the most part, they're never linear. How would you describe your career path?
I would describe it as a journey of love and passion, in that I follow the things that I love to do. I always knew since I was, a young girl, that I wanted to be a writer, but I always just sort of married that with whatever my passion was at that time and whatever it allowed me to do. So early in, it was advertising writing and business writing. And I loved doing that because I was a business scholar. And then I had children. And so I started writing children's books. And so I married that. And then I wrote for the Toronto Star as a columnist, and I was big into fitness. So I wrote Movers and Shakers, about successful people and how they stay fit and active. And then I also married it back to business and did taking care of business for them for another year as a columnist. So I always seem to, put whatever I'd love to do, whatever my passions were, I married it with whatever my skill set was. And then so I did it for about 25 years, and it was a wonderful, wonderful journey. And then in 2019, I guess it was actually early 2020, I went on an author visit. It was about in January. And I was at the school doing an author visit. It was a fabulous school in Brampton. And it was something, you get good schools, you get schools where you go, okay, well, that was worth a try. But this school was dynamite. You can just tell. I mean, there's a vibe in the school. I know any parent knows it. You walk in, the bulletin boards are just filled with all kinds of fun and creative things. The teachers are enthusiastic. The kids are all, they're happy and engaged, but also, polite and respectful. So you're getting this perfect balance. And I was visiting with students from, I guess, right from kindergarten right up to grade 8 that day. So it was a long day, lots of nutrition breaks during the day. And I was sitting there in one of the nutrition breaks in the library, as I like to do, to sort of decompress and calm down. And I picked up one of my earliest books, and I looked at the copyright page. I went, "Oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing this. I think I'm done." Like, it just sort of just hit me. It was just an epiphany. And I went, "How can I be done? I still have other ideas. Am I done? I'm in the middle of writing. No, I might be done." And I just thought, I can't be done. This can't be my last author visit, because I have a bunch of others booked through the spring. Well, I went on my holiday in March. COVID hit. I never went on an author visit again.
Wow.
It's like the universe knew, as if I knew somehow. And it was at that time during the pandemic where a lot of people did a little pivot. I did a major pivot, and I went, well, what do I do now? What's my love now? What am I going to use my skill as a writer and a researcher and a journalist? What am I going to use it for now? And I thought, I'm going to do women's advocacy work. Yeah. I felt this very strong pull in solidarity and sisterhood and wanting to stand for women's rights. And I don't know if I just needed that maturity time to get there. I wish I had started earlier, but every moment prepares you for the next. And this prepared me for that moment. And I have been ever since very much involved in women's advocacy work. I started Glorious as She. I'm back at school studying gender, feminist, and women's studies. And my life has changed, all for the better. I loved what I did, but I'm really jazzed about what I'm doing now.
We are super excited. You're also one of our nominees for Women of Inspiration Awards. So congratulations.
Thank you. It's
Really
an honor.
excited to have you part. And you're also a contributor with the You Women magazine as well. So, we really love to have your words of wisdom and your experience. And I want to touch on something that you contributed on the last issue was about ageism.
Yes.
And so, I think that's a really important topic. We only just dusted that off last issue, but then it really came full circle, of course, when, Lisa LaFlamme, she
Yes.
was denied her, final farewell, and, her exit was, shocking to say the least. And so, maybe you can shed a little bit of light in with the viewers. I mean, I think at 50, I'm just getting started. How about you?
Absolutely. And I think that is a really important thing for all women to remember, is that age does not define you, and that the problem is that it may define you in the eyes of others. And you have to recognize you can't, to deny it isn't there, it means that you then can't be aware of it, you can't look out for it, you can't circumvent it. Women have a choice whether or not, color your hair, don't color your hair, use Botox, it doesn't matter. But just being who you want to be, and if that means you are silver haired like me and that's what you want to be, great. And I think that it's unfortunate because we are very polite, as especially Canadians, you're likely not going to have someone say to you, oh, you're too old for this opportunity, or, but you will have microaggressions. It will appear. People will say, oh, I guess you're excited about being a grandmother. Well, not really. Not, yeah, if I am, great. If I'm not, that's okay too. That's not, my full identity, but people will assume it. People will just little things like silly things. I'm sitting in a classroom at school, and someone, young woman, peeks in the door, and she kind of gingerly knocks and says, can I come in? And I said, oh yeah, come on in. And so she comes in and she's all polite. And I said, you realize I'm not the professor. So it's really quite amazing, like these little things. Being called, well, youngster or miss, or that sort of thing. So it's these little things. It's in looking at a job. Say you're looking at job postings, and it says, we're looking for someone with 5 to 10 years experience. What if I have 15 years experience? What if I have 25 years experience? Are you telling me in this coded language that you want someone who's in their 30s? So it's those little things that we have to be aware of, that honestly, we often don't even realize we're doing them. We're putting that language out there. But, or, you may not, someone said to me the other day, well, in today's world, well, I live in today's world. I am very present in today's world. I know how to Zoom. I have a social media platform on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. I am in today's world. I know about this newfangled thing called the internet. So it's just, it's amazing the assumptions that are made just because of someone assuming your age. And so fighting back against that takes some courage, and it takes just accepting that that's just, a bit of what you're going to have out there, and just deal with it. Don't let it define you.
Well, great advice. And I think that, it was a perfect example where we had not had that conversation for so long. It had existed behind the scenes, but until it was brought right square in front of it, and social media actually really enabled that conversation to be so public, where anybody could weigh in on it. I think those situations really just will help open up doors where companies saw clear, the ones that stayed silent and just watching everything going on, they realized how important that is. And if they want to build loyalty with their teams, with their customers, with other vendors and partners, aligning with the same values is super important. If you're not on the same page, business is lost, and there's a real divide right now on, if you're not supporting and championing diversity, equity, inclusion, and, elevating women, I mean, people don't want to work for you. They won't want to be in that culture, and they have decisions. They have other opportunities.
Then they're going to buy someone else's products.
And they're going to buy somebody else's product just because you don't align with their values.
I've been with
so
Bell,
super important.
with my Bell Mobility cell phone for ever since that was my first. Bell was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, was my first cell phone. And when this happened and they did nothing, they didn't reverse it. They first of all, they let it happen. I mean, I think one of the misnomers that got out there in the media on the Lisa Laflamme situation was that they put it all on one gentleman at BCE, and he was, rightfully raked over the coals a bit on social media, but it wasn't just him. These things don't happen in isolations. Everyone wants to say, okay, we'll just we'll get the scapegoat. We'll find the one. It's not individualistic. Racism isn't individualistic. Sexism isn't. Genderism isn't. It's not an individual. It's systemic, it's systematic, and it's structural. So we have to talk to everyone in management at CTV and Bell. We have to talk to the board of directors. We have to talk to and the customers as well. And so when that happened and they refused to do anything about it, I am, people can say, well, why'd you go with them? But I did switch plans, and I, and it cost me money. I had to break my plan. But it was like, it becomes about values and principles and who you are. And we have to vote in this particular case with our pocketbooks, with our wallets, and with our eyes and our ears. And I'm not going to watch that news anymore. And it used to be my favorite. And I really liked the guy who replaced her. I often thought, geez, he's the one. He's next up. I always thought that he would be perfect, but not like this.
What's really interesting is that women, and you talk about, we're going to be choosing with our purse strings. And ironically, men or women who make over 70% of the buying decision. It's not just 50 anymore. It's like 70. Yeah. I think it's like 73% is the new number that I had heard just this week. That's in the US, mind you. I don't think Canada's very much different. Where women have 73% of the buying power. So yikes. Yeah. So not paying attention to stuff like that is going to hurt and impact the business big time.
Yeah. Well, even what's happening in I think it's the NBA, where one of the owners was called out for racist and sexist language, atrocious language that he'd been doing for years and years and years. And the head of the league said that, well, all we can do is give him a $10 million fine, which is a lot for any one of us, but not for someone in his camp. And we've suspended him for a year. If any one of us in our jobs use that language, we would, and had that thought process, more importantly, and created that kind of culture, we would have been long gone. But it's all about power. Any of the isms, it's all about power. So, it's
and how women need to own their power.
Yes.
And women in power need to use their influence to build others up. And I don't think it's just the role of just the heavy lifting where it comes on just women. And I really, truly believe, supporters, I think they play such a really integral role on how we do it. And I hear all the time, women must support women, but guess what? Men must support women. And that's where our supporters and allies come into play. So tell me about your network of support hers and your world, Tina.
Well, my number one support her is my husband, Randy. We've been married for 38 years, and he has always been there whatever my dream, whatever my passion, supporting me along the way, and also giving me a kick in the backside when I need it. I remember when we were actually flying back from a holiday, and I was bemoaning, oh, I haven't got a children's book published. I haven't, me, oh, woe is me, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, you just shit or get off the pot. So I just went, well, fine, if you're going to be like that. And I ended up getting a book published, but it's that kind of thing. So sometimes it's being the greatest cheerleader, and other times it's being someone who pushes you. I early in my career, there was the vice president of marketing at National Trust. I was his marketing assistant. He had heard about me. I was in the branch system, and I actually had resigned and said that I didn't really like banking. It didn't feed my creative soul, and I was going to go do something else. And he had heard about me, and he says, if you want to be in marketing, I'll make you my marketing assistant. So I became his marketing assistant, and he then promoted me to director of advertising. And I was very young at the time, so it was quite an honor. And then the latest one would be the dean at York University, and I was actually in the Advancing Women program as a mentor for 3rd and 4th year students. I'm an alumni. I got my first degree at York. And he said, I was talking to him, and I said, I got a kind of crazy idea. And he goes, what's that? And I said, going back to school. He goes, that's not crazy. That's not crazy. Go. And that was, again, just, it's almost, I don't know. It was almost like, not that I needed permission, but just knowing that the voices and the universe were out there supporting what I wanted to do, and the path was there. So
love all those examples. And I know that our Indra, or the former CEO of PepsiCo, her rise and everything that she did, like, she was surrounded by men. And it was the men that said, go do this. They're the ones that also kicked your butt, but they're the ones that, helped her with picking her kids up for school, and now opened up the doors and provided the opportunities for her to open the doors.
Well, the last 2 weeks of school where I've been back at school, I don't think I have made one meal, washed one dish, made one bed, like nothing, and it's all getting done. So, and I know we don't have any hired help. So my husband is doing everything, and he's a CEO. So it's about true partnership. If you're going to have a partner in life, male, female, doesn't matter. It's got to be a true partnership in every sense. And so right now he's doing the heavy lifting at home.
Amazing. Here. I'm going to say that I'm open for applications for that spot to have somebody help me do these things.
Well, I'll help you write the ad. Okay.
Right. Yes. Let's write myself an ad for that. Oh my goodness. That is so helpful. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the contribution that our supporters play to our success. And so, so who have been some of the female let's talk about, I want to talk about the female leaders. So who's been some of the female leaders that have inspired or motivated you?
Wow. I think the first person that I can talk about, well, I talked earlier about the different prime ministers right now who are out there and doing what they're doing. So, Jacinda Ardern and Santa Marin, like, they're amazing and so inspiring, and because it's the newer generation out there. I would say that personally in my career, one of the people I loved working with was Jane McDonald, and she actually ran the advertising agency where I first started doing some advertising copy, and she was the first woman that I met that had gone on to business for herself. So she was the first entrepreneur that I had met, other than myself, who would run a little writing business on the side. And I just found it incredibly inspiring that she was able to juggle a young family, she had a partner, she had a home, she had a business, she had lots of people whose careers and livelihoods depended upon her. She had 2 partners she was responsible with, another woman and a man. So it was the 3 of them. So I found her wildly inspiring, that as one of the people early in my career who showed me that, because my father had been an entrepreneur, but I hadn't really, and even though I did a writing business freelance on the side, I never saw someone run a business. And so that was amazing to me to see her have so many employees and an office, and it was a cool office to boot. Like we'd go and we'd have Fridays, we hang up the Gone Fishing sign and have a barbecue or celebrate someone's birthday. So it was just, and again, it was all in her style. Sort of thing. She had this style and grace, and she wasn't afraid to be feminine, but also, very strong, independent, smart businesswoman. And I think that's where I got that from.
Well, I hope that you're going to share this podcast with her, because I bet she doesn't know that.
I will, for sure. And that's the thing, we have to, and that goes back to your earlier thought about, we have to celebrate the women around us. It's so critical. Yes, I'm grateful for the support hers, but I'm very grateful for the women around me who have supported me, and those actually who didn't support me, who just made me dig in my heels even more and make me stronger.
That is so important. It's like fuel for fire. I'll prove you wrong. And those situations end up being the biggest motivators sometimes.
For sure.
So let's talk about, we're driving change, and, the stat, I think, I shared that, 2108 was the latest report that came out, that Melinda Gates had shared, the report that they just released. 2108 until we actually achieve equality. And I'm shocked. And for me, I'd love to hear about your thoughts on this, but for me, it's kind of like that gasoline on the fire, meaning we have to turn it up even more. And there's even more motivation to elevate women in leadership roles at all levels, and, really put women front and center. Yes. So why is it so critical to be celebrating, and for female leaders to be front and center more now than ever?
Well, I think we've had a setback with COVID. And in fact, it has driven more women out of the workforce and back at home, because it's so funny, because in the 90s, they talked about intensive mothering that was happening then, where you had to have this full-time career job and always have your stuff together. You had to, keep yourself fit and healthy too, and looking good. And then also you had your kids had to be in, French lessons and in karate and skiing. And you had to, and you better do the mums and tots thing. And, in the perfect, home and chef and et cetera, and it was all impossible to achieve. Well, then COVID hits, and on top of that, let's just pile on, you have to be an excellent teacher while you're doing your own work at home, as doing the Zoom, and it's just impossible. So I think that, and so it ended up, a lot of women experienced home as not being a safe place anymore. What wasn't in the first place, but having to be in there 24/7 under the pressures and stresses of COVID made it even a less safe place for them. So we had, so much substance abuse and physical abuse and against women. Then on top of that, we had women saying, I can't do this. I'm stressed out. I'm having mental health issues. I am having physical health issues. I need to quit. Something's got to give. And I can't give away my 8-year-old. So I'm going to have to quit my job and, or take a leave of absence. So then they've been set back in their career as well. Then there's been all this financial strain on businesses and organizations. And they're saying, well, we can't pay that. And so they're trying to cut corners and cut costs where they can. And then the whole job market. So all of that is put us even back farther. So when you talk about the date being, what is it, 2080?
2108.
2108. And that's to have the pay gap equalized. Is that what that is, the date for? Because that's why there's equality, which means equal, but then there's also equity. And equity means we make, until we reach that goal, until we achieve that, we have to have equity in the workplace, which means people looking at situations and saying, okay, look, this person is super qualified. This person is qualified too, but they happen to be, identify as female. This one happens to be identify as male. Over gazillions of years and from the beginning of time, this one always got the spot first. So even if it's not equal, I'm going to go with this one because they're good enough. And I don't mean that as, oh, you're good enough, but you are more than capable and you deserve this opportunity. Yeah. And so we have to go with equity. We have to make equity the goal until we can reach equality. And that means making opportunities for Black, Indigenous, people of color, people with, when we're looking at ableism. So we got to, across the board for everyone. And it just, organizations just have to do that.
And the conversation like we're having today really do help, because it opens up, for somebody going through that or somebody in a position of power or influence, just to hear it and be able to articulate it or see how it impacts them or see how it might impact their employees. I mean, that is all going to help. And I truly do believe that everybody plays a role.
Yeah.
It's not up to one committee. It's not up to one workplace. It's not up to, it's every single person plays a role to make that happen.
Absolutely. I mean, even diversity, equity, and inclusion committees, if they are all employees of an organization, they do not have objectivity. They do not have necessarily the confidence to tell the organization really what it needs. So they end up maybe soft pedaling it a bit or saying, well, we're doing okay, but we could do this and this. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. Because there's a power structure in place. Mm-hmm. So you really, if you want truly diversity and equity and inclusion in your organization, you need to have outside people there telling you the real story, doing the real research on the organization, investigating what's really going on. And then you can move towards that closer.
Transparency plays a huge role, building trust.
Yeah.
To move that needle. So great conversation, Tina. I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk about what's some of the best advice that you've ever heard, that you have put into place, that has really helped you succeed.
Well, I think one of the best pieces of advice was advice I never took. And that was, I went to a conference. I was an aspiring author, and a lot of people approached me about, I want to be an author. How did you do it? How can I do it? And so I was at this conference for aspiring authors, and a very successful author was up on stage talking about her story and how she got to where she was. And she turned and she pointed to in the direction of this gentleman who was standing off to the side and said, and it wasn't the sort of feel-good support her story that you like to showcase. It was, but one of my pieces of advice to all of you out there, and unfortunately most of the people in the audience were women, she says, is leave the business to the business types and, just focus on your writing. Let the suits handle all the business. And I remember sitting there going, I said, well, my first publishing house that I went with couldn't make a go of it financially. So he ended up selling his list to a huge, Canada's largest publisher at the time and distribution center. And they went bankrupt within the year. And I went, I have a business degree. I can drive a business into the ground as well as the next guy. So I started my own business, Big Fat Pen Publishing, and it's through them that I sold all of those books. So not leaving it to the business people, because I found that publishing is a great industry, but not necessarily always the best in business. And also you need to have, it's all about empowerment, and it's all about having creative control over your vision as an author. And I wasn't going to get that going the traditional route. So I didn't follow that advice, and I never regretted not following it.
Amazing. I love that. And I think that rings true. I think that, there's that intuition, that little button, whatever it's here, but that feeling that you have, mine's in my gut, whether you know that you've made the right decision or not. Do you have one of those buttons, Tina?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's someone said to me the other day, who I highly respect, this other woman, and she said, when I know something's not right, I feel itchy. And I love that. And so when I feel itchy, she said, when I feel itchy, I have to sit down and just everyone be quiet. I got to think about this. And I feel that. So whenever I feel itchy, I go, okay, this isn't sitting right with me. And usually if it's not sitting right with me, it's a value conflict.
Mm.
It's that this doesn't, sitting right with my values. And I think that that's one of the most important things that we should follow in our life is don't compromise, don't settle when it comes to your values.
Yeah, beautiful. I couldn't agree more. So my next question is, do you believe that women can have it all?
The old joke used to be like, I can't have it all, I just do it all. And that's the problem. But I think that women should not aspire to have it all as far as everything, or a man should not aspire to have it all. You can't have it all. You can't say, I'm going to do everything today. It's only 24 hours in a day. You have to have sleep, you have to have downtime, you have to have time to rejuvenate. And so I think the important thing is that a woman can have all that she wants to have and make sure it's on her terms.
Mm.
That is the kind of all I'm looking for. And I think other women should consider, because to say that I'm going to have it all, I think we have to make choices in life. We've always had, you can't have, everything on the menu. You can't walk into a restaurant and say, I want it all. You can't physically consume that. So choose your favorites, choose. It's kind of like, what's her name from Scandal? What do you want? So
I think there was Notebook. What do you want?
yes, that's right, for the Notebook movie too.
And, it's kind of interesting. And I've heard this many times. It's like, you can have it all, but not at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's just prioritizing what makes sense now. And out of all of the women that I've spoken with, it's really interesting to see the career paths and the journeys, because eventually this is a journey. Our life is a journey, and just picking out what you want to be focused on and present, and what you're focused on, and really what you choose to really navigate through right now, just like going back to school. You've done so many different things, but now you want to focus going back to school. That may change once you're done school and on to the next experience. So anyways, great advice. I always love to ask that. As is the next question for you about imposter syndrome. I know that we touch on it, in our success calls, but I would love you to share, if you've ever experienced imposter syndrome, and if you have, how have you overcome it? Because when we see other successful women struggling with the fear of imposter syndrome, knowing that it's normal really helps us through it.
Absolutely. I mean, I would not be normal if I didn't experience it. And I think everyone experiences it across the spectrum. I remember I taught when I was 24, I was asked to teach a class on salesmanship at Sheridan College, and it was a night school class. So you're having all mature students in the room. And so I walk into the classroom and I look, looking from the back of the room at the front, and I see people of all different ages, mostly men. And I'm kind of sigh as I look, and I'm going, this is my class. And they're, some of them are 20 years my senior. And I'm going, oh my goodness. I just wanted to sit in the class and say, I guess the teacher didn't show up. Let's go. I did not want to walk to that front of that classroom. But you touched upon something earlier, and the word of transparency and authenticity. And so I thought, no, I'm going to go to the front of the room. And I went to the front of the room and I said, hi, yes, guess what? I'm your teacher. I know. Some of you want to leave. I get that. And I just said, I'll make a deal with you. I know the theory. I know the examples, and I know the concepts and the strategies. You have all the experience. Tell you what, I'll give you the theory, you fill in all the experience. And they okay, we can do that. That was the deal. So I think being very authentic in what you can and can't do, and authentic in who you are, and just coming clean with it is empowering. That honesty. And I also felt imposter syndrome yesterday when I realized that I was a Woman of Inspiration finalist. I had to check 3 times.
Well, deserving to be in that circle of women. You're certainly, so inspiring. Everything and the conversation's so easy. I'm really thankful that we've had this opportunity to have this conversation, Tina. Long overdue. So excited to have this. But it is coming to a wrap with our podcast. I could talk to you for hours, literally. But I always like to finish the podcast with one final question. Tell us what your definition of a woman of inspiration is to you.
Well, I think a woman of inspiration, it's obviously all about inspiring. So it's about inspiring through any opportunity you have. It's through your words, through your actions, and through your accomplishments, what you do, just people watching you. I think your passion, enthusiasm have to come through, because enthusiasm is the greatest salesperson. And I think when you walk in the room as a woman of inspiration, people take notice of you. You sparkle, you shine, and people want to, that from the movie When Harry Met Sally, I'll have what she's having, because you just want some of that, because it's contagious. Mm-hmm. And I think a woman of inspiration isn't about her. It's about celebrating other women. I think that's an important part of it as well. And it has this outward excitement when other women exceed, like their heart sings when another woman succeeds. And you probably have women of inspiration all around you. She's your best friend, she's your favorite cheerleader, she's your trusted advisor, all rolled into one.
Beautiful. And like I said, you're an inspiring woman. Of course, we're really thrilled to have you on this journey with us, to be one of our 2022 Women of Inspiration finalists, Tina, and looking forward to the journey ahead. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you really, and I say gentlemen, because I know that there's a lot of men that actually listen to the Women of Inspiration podcast as well, because there's lots of information and young listeners. But I just want to say thank you again. And Tina, where can listeners find out more about you or connect with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to come back and interview you. But anyway, that's another day. But because you are a woman of inspiration. But yes, tinapowell.com, and as well as on Glorious is She across LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And if anyone wants to reach out to me in the audience, please feel free to. I love to hear from people.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your leadership wisdom with us today. And those that are listening, that is a wrap on the Woman of Inspiration podcast with Tina Powell. And if you loved this episode, share it widely with your network. We really do want, you never know who is listening that needs to hear the motivation, the inspiration, and the advice that our leaders are so passionate about sharing. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon.